was out in the garden and noticed that our chives were ready to pick, and it's been so hot the last couple days. They need to be picked right now or they're going to go to seed. But we are going to make some chive blossom vinegar. I'm going to show you how easy it is to make. And then later, when we go to strain it and I'm using it for salad dressings, then we will make a part 2 of this video. But I wanted to make sure that we can get this part of the video up as soon as possible so you can do this activity while you still have chive blossoms in your yard. If you're just meeting me, my name is Amy Cross, and this is The Cross Legacy, where I teach you how to save money on groceries. I grew up on a large farm, so some of these things I have grown up learning how to do, and other things you just get really excited when you see something on social media and then realize that you also have those chive blossoms out in your yard right now. So these were just picked outside, and we know that there was one little crawly straggler on them. There could be more in there. So we are going to wash these in a vinegar wash and soak them in water like I do for most produce items. So it's a 5% distilled white vinegar. We're going to soak that for 2 minutes, and it's going to kill off anything that might be floating around in these chives. So for cleaning the produce, I'm going to use 5% distilled white vinegar. This bottle has been refilled so many times with other vinegars over the years. I just keep using the same glass bottle. But anyways, you normally want to use a 1/4 cup of distilled white vinegar to 10 cups of water. Since this is just a tiny batch, I'm going to cut those ratios in half to wash the chive blossoms. And then while I'm doing the next step, I'm just going to let these dry out on a towel a little bit just to make sure any of the water is getting off of it, because I am going to rinse these to make sure that there's no floaties left behind in the chives that we're going to end up putting into the jars. And then to make the vinegar, I'm going to use white wine vinegar. So you can use distilled vinegar if that's the only vinegar you have, but I'm going to use white wine vinegar. They have 2 different processes and they're made differently, and so they taste different also. If you've ever seen me wash raspberries and know how much I have to check in every single one to make sure there's not bugs, you will not believe how much I check these. So there were quite a few things that came up in the waters, and I rinsed them thoroughly afterwards. And this will sit in a vinegar solution and then we'll strain it again. But we do want to try to keep all the bugs out of it. And with us having an organic garden, we do have a little bit more than you might. So these are just going to dry for a minute. We just want some of the water off of them. They don't have to be completely dry. But I just have little jelly jars here. These are a perfect size if you're wanting to give them out as a gift. But I also am going to try to do it 2 different ways, and I wanted to use smaller jars for that. So we are going to be using it with the cold pour method. That'll end up keeping some of the probiotic benefits of having the vinegar in the chives. But we're also going to do it with a warmed up method. That will make the color more vibrant when we go to strain it out, and it will end up being a pretty pink color. It should be a little bit more dark than the cold press one. So we're going to try out the 2 different methods. Again, you won't see the end process of this in this video because it takes around 2 to 3 weeks to steep. We are selling our house, so the next video might end up being in our new house also. So there doesn't have to be exact measurements in this. If you want it to be really chivey, just jam pack the jar as much as you can with the blossoms and then cover it with the vinegar. If you want a lighter chive taste, then put less blossoms in there. If you're more concerned about it being vibrant, then do the warm method. So you want to make sure that the vinegar is just warm and it never goes to a boil before you pour it into the jar. And this is such a fun activity to do with your littles, to have them go out and pick the chives and wash them and then put them in the jar and see the magic that happens over the next couple weeks as it changes colors. So since I'm not really worried about measurements too much, I'm going to do the warm one first, and I am just going to fill this about 3/4 of the way full. So whatever container you're using, it doesn't have to be an official canning jar. I'm going to fill it 3/4 of the way full and just put it on medium heat just for a minute before it starts boiling. So I just got this right to where it's starting to steam. I'm going to turn it off of the heat and then pour it into the jar. Another helpful tip with these is that the vinegar will cause the rings to rust. So I put a little bit of wax paper down in between the glass and the lid. So it's really easy just to cut a square and put it on the jar, and then you don't have to worry about your lid and your ring rusting. So these are going to steep for around 2-ish weeks. It can go a lot longer than that if you want it to. Also, the longer it steeps, the more strong chivey flavor that you're going to have. And I'm curious to see which one ends up being a darker color. So we have the one with the X on it is the one that is the warm one, and the other one is not warm. It was the cold pour one. And these will stay in your pantry for like a year. So you can keep steeping it as long as you want, but after you strain it off and put it back into the jar, you can continue to use it as vinegar in different vinaigrettes for the next year or so. And since I have allergies, I make most of my salad dressings from scratch using items that I know are allergy friendly for me and avoiding seed oils. So if you're interested in finding more salad dressing kind of recipes, make sure that you hit subscribe.